Okay, good morning and welcome to Math 8, our new chapter. We're going to start chapter 4 today, so make sure you have the new chapter 4 note packet. And we are going to do the first part of 4-1, and that is going to be to construct and a little bit of interpretation of scatter plots. Okay, so the first thing that we need to point out is what is a scatter plot? So a scatter plot is a graph that uses points to display the relationship between two sets of data. And by points, we mean ordered pairs. Okay, and so I have an example below. It says Luciana analyzes the data collected to determine how long after posting a new blog her new homepage received its maximum number of views. Her data are presented in the table. So there are three different rows here in the table: which blog post it is, the hours after she posts it, and then the number of views. So the first thing we have to do to draw a scatter plot is determine what variables we are looking for, because we can only use two at a time in a scatter plot. So on your graph it's blank, but it says draw the scatter plot to help Luciana determine whether there is a relationship between the time after posting and the number of views. So knowing that time after posting, that's going to be our independent variable. We want to label that at the bottom. And then the number of views is going to be our dependent variable. We want to label that along the y-axis. I know there's the blog post, but that's not something that we are going to be comparing in this question. So the next thing you have to do is determine the scale for your x and y axis. So our time in hours after posting, if you look, we've got 2, 6, 1, 3, 4, 7, 3. So we have plenty of room to go by ones or twos here. So technically I've only labeled by twos, but each square is worth 1. I left one blank to keep it nice and neat. Then number of views, you got to look at this data. We've got 350, 50, 500, 200, 150, 25, and 250. So those, we know we've got to get up kind of high, but we're at 25 for our lowest. So I chose to go technically by 50s, but I only labeled every other one, so I went by 100. So that would be 50, 100, 150, 200, and so on. Sometimes you want to label less so that your graph looks neater. All right, so once everything's labeled, and you can pause the video if you need time, then you put the points on the table. Where do you get the information? Well, you look at your table here. So 2 hours after posting, we've got 350 views, or she does. So you would go right to and then up to 350, which would be right there, and you make a dot. 6 hours after posting, she's got 50 views. So go right 6 and then up 50, make a dot. 1 hour after posting, she's got 500 views. Right 1 up to 500, there's a dot. Okay, 3 hours, 200 views. So right 3 up 200. 4 hours, 150 views. Right 4 up to 150. 7 hours after posting, only 25 views. So 25 we're going to have to estimate. We know this is 50. We're going to go halfway in between here for 25. And then finally, 3 hours after posting, she has 250 views. So 3 hours, 250. Okay, so this is what a scatter plot, this is called a scatter plot of the data. So we have labeled our independent, our dependent variable, all our data. The only other thing that is missing would be a title. So the title that we might want to use here, you talk about what you're talking about. So time after posting and number of views is what we're looking at. So we could say Luciana's new blog. All right, and this is giving us information, so that would be the title. Okay, So why do we do this? We do this eventually to make predictions about what's going to happen. And in this case, she wanted to determine how long after posting her new blog her homepage had the maximum number of views. And if you look here, according to this, it's very clear her maximum number of views was right away, 500, 1 hour after. And it steadily goes down, which brings us to the next part. So underneath, I've listed the associations. So a positive association, and you'll have to pause the video and put in some dots. They don't have to be exactly like mine, but a positive association means that as your independent variable, that would be this one. Oh, independent, sorry, is going up, your dependent variable is also going up. So positive association is going to be traveling. As independent goes up, then the dependent goes up. Also, another name for association would be correlation here, depending on what text you are looking at. A negative association, as your independent variable goes up, right, as we go across, your dependent variable, whatever that is heading down. And then sometimes we get data where there is no association at all. So when you look at your independent variable going up, your dependent variable really has no pattern. It's all over the place. Okay, and so those are the three associations, which means up here in our example 1, what kind of association is Luciana seeing here? She's seeing a negative association because as her time is increasing, her number of views is decreasing, okay? Now, one more thing for this, and we will go over the actual definitions tomorrow in our next video. There are a couple of things we should talk about. The first is a cluster. A cluster is going to be when you have lots of data points all together. So right here, this would be something we call a cluster of data. The second thing is a gap in the data. So if you have a big section where there is no data present, like here between these dots, this would be called a gap. All right, so this is a gap in your data. And then any dots, any points that are set apart from the rest of the data are called an outlier. So in this negative association, everything's kind of within range except for this guy right here. That's called an outlier. And we'll go over that a little bit more tomorrow. Okay, for my class, your homework today is going to be the Construct Scatterplots worksheet. And we're going to do both sides of that. Your job is to construct all the scatter plots on there and then label your independent and dependent variables and tell each association. So that worksheet looks like this. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.